The industrial litigation specialist who went after BP following the Texas City refinery explosion in 2005 is taking the company back to the courthouse. Joining us is Brent Coon, founder of Brent Coon and Associates. Mr. Coon, it's great to see you. The one thing that really jumped out at me immediately, we keep talking negligence versus malfeasance. You make the claim here, they have a history, BP does, of actually sanitizing their reports in hindsight, almost to make it look like some safety features were actually in place that weren't there. Now, did that happen in Texas City?
You know, it sure did.
And do you have any evidence that happened in this case yet, or not?
We don't know in this case yet. The discovery is in the embryonic state, really. You file the lawsuit, and then it's months later before you can obtain the actual documentation and start taking depositions. What we do understand is that Congress this time has been able to access a number of the documents, and that we're working with BP at this time to try to get them earlier on in the litigation.
That goes beyond, that's criminal activity, right?
Yeah, what we do know from Texas City is that there was criminal activity. We spent 4 years in discovery. We had 7 million documents, and what we found in those documents was a great deal of what I would call criminal activity. We turned this over to the Department of Justice, and it was criminal prosecution.
So you filed a lawsuit for rig workers. That looks like, in your words, only $100 to $200 million. The real, the lion's share is going to be in the Gulf Coast industry?
It would be. I mean, we can't really quantify the damages to the rig workers yet. There were 11 people that lost their lives out there that day. Many people are crippled and will never be able to go back to work. But obviously the economic impact to our entire Gulf Coast far transcends the costs associated with the loss of those lives.
And you're going to be involved in that as well. But have you filed any suits yet, or just for the rig workers?
We have. We filed some of those. Again, there's a lot of movement in the legal system with respect to where these cases are going to land as it relates to multi-district litigation panel orders. So we're in a holding pattern on some of that. But obviously everyone up and down the coast is upset, and most of them, unfortunately, will have sustained some economic damage as a result of this before it's over.
Do you name anyone else besides BP, Transocean, or any of the other players? Yeah,
we have Cameron. Obviously, they were the manufacturer of the blowout preventer. We're looking closely at them. Halliburton, we're obviously looking closely at them. There are some minority investment companies that are involved in association with BP on the actual ownership of this well, which is Anadarko and Mitsui, so we're looking at those companies as well.
Hey, Brent, what happens if BP actually winds up going bankrupt? Does everybody wind up getting stuck holding the bag then? Your thoughts on that?
Well, the taxpayers could. I mean, ultimately, the sad tragedy of all this is that some simple errors in pushing to get this exploration rig off and get a production rig on has impacted our entire Gulf Coast. And the impact of that's not just on the environment, which is what people are seeing on TV now, with how it's impacted the fisheries and the shrimping and the wildlife there. The impact economically, when you hit these tourist towns and destination-oriented areas all up and down the coast, the impact of those is debilitating. People won't, a lot of people don't want to go down there when they're risking oil on the beaches. They're looking at rerouting their destination-oriented vacations, and we've met with a lot of people from Galveston to the Keys, and most of them report the same thing, that there's a significant dip in bookings for the summer, and the ripple effect of that could impact the entire municipality.
Can you get your arms around just the financial cost of what you think it may be at the end of the day?
Obviously, it's already tremendous. You'll never be able to quantify it at this rate with the oil still coming out and with us not really knowing the full impact on all of our coastal environments and on our coastal economies. But it's staggering.
I understand your focus is on BP here, but you've been looking at this as objectively as you can, I'm sure, for quite a while now.
Yes,
How about the role of government? To what extent do they have a little responsibility on their shoulders?
I think the government has a significant amount of responsibility. They might not have legal culpability, but I think our government had a moral obligation to regulate this very powerful industry much sooner than it did. And we know the incestuous relationship of big oil with both political parties. We know how it involves the relationships with the Department of Interior, with MMS, and the oversight and regulations that they have to abide by. And we look at other countries that are more diligent with respect to the responsibilities associated with deep-sea drilling. You look at Norway, you look at Brazil, you look at Canada, our sister country right above us. They require relief wells and other things to make sure that the risk of something like this happening is much less.
Now, this is a worthy adversary that you have. They got a lot of money and a lot of lawyers, and you know how long it's going to take, I guess, and they're going to they keep making a lot of money year after year. I'm just trying to figure out what the total cost would be and what the company's actually worth and what the chances are that, you know, some people think, I mean, I don't know if bankruptcy is likely. What do you really think?
Well, you know, we've seen it before. We saw it with GM recently. We saw it with Texaco back in the 80s. It's not unheard of for a company to go into Chapter 11 just to protect its assets. It doesn't mean that they lose the company. There are all types of different chapters of bankruptcy that provide different levels of protection. And I wouldn't be shocked to see something like that, but also because they're so big, they have a lot of political clout, both in Washington and in Great Britain, and they may be looking for some kind of deal in which one of both governments help step in.
All right, Brent, just for Becky, he said protect its assets, Becky. I mean, she'll be all... You did?
Yeah.
I heard.
She'll be all over you. If she thinks you know, did like, I'm going to, you know, so I just... You heard.
I heard.
All right, Brent, thank you. I appreciate your time. We'll have you back at some point.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.